African proverb that says, "Until the lion learns to tell its story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." You see, what is tragic about that proverb is that the lion in that proverb is you and me. On the other hand, the hunter refers to our competitors, the people who want us to fail, the people who don't want us to succeed in life. So the question is, are you going to let the hunter win, or are you going to rise as a true lion, the king of the jungle, and tell your own story so that the rest of the jungle knows that you are truly the king? Hi, my name is Gideon For-mukwai. Some people say I am the story warrior or Dr. G. Either way, I am delighted to share with you today about the power of story in growing your business, in growing your influence organically without using any amount of money for advertising. Whether it's on Facebook, it's on Twitter, it's on LinkedIn, or beyond, if you know how to harness the power of your story, you can do a fascinating job of getting people's admiration, of getting instant attention, and above all, in also getting recognition for what you deserve. The expertise that you have, the goodwill that you've developed over the years, you need to be able to harness this for your professional growth. You need to be able to harness this to grow your influence, to grow your business. That's something that is very important to me, because several years ago when I started my business, I didn't have a bag of money waiting to be spent. And yes, I had competitors who had tons of money to spend because they came from well-off homes. They were able to advertise in the newspapers, but I had none of that. And all I had to depend on was to use the organic growth power of story that grows from one person to another, from mouth to mouth, in growing my business into well over 6 figures within 2 years. So you may be asking, Gideon, how is that possible? How did you get into this storytelling thing? I wish I could tell you I was smart, that I had figured all of it. No, I got into it by sheer luck. You see, I grew up in Africa, where our cultures out there are steeped into storytelling. Our parents tell stories, but somehow I grew up at a time when young boys did not fully enjoy the power of story. And I thought that storytelling was for people who were not very smart. So I spent a lot of time trying to study the sciences, forcing myself into all of that. And yes, to some extent I was good at it. But much later on, when I was working in Southeast Asia, precisely in Singapore, and I had to train firefighters, paramedics, I had to train police officers, Navy officers on fire safety, I discovered that I didn't have many tools at my disposal in explaining difficult and challenging concepts, from organic chemistry, from hazardous materials, from topics as far as different as engineering. None of that was coming naturally. So I had to start deploying the power of story in sharing my message. And I took part in a speech contest in which I failed to come up in the top 2 positions. However, at the end of the contest, a lady pulled me to the side and said to me, Gideon, her name is Dr. Kong. She said to me, Gideon, if you want to succeed in this area of public speaking, or even in growing your small business, you have to pay close attention to storytelling. I thought it was a joke, but I nonetheless took her seriously, because she was a lady who spoke very little. But when she spoke, she was able to deliver a lot of wisdom. So I went and bought my first storytelling book in 2003, A Leader's Guide to Storytelling. I started to digest it. I started to fall in love with the power of storytelling. And each time when I went back to class and I tried to explain concepts, I noticed that my students would lean forward. They would smile. Even very uptight police officers, fire officers, they would lean forward. Navy officers, they would lean forward with a smile in their face, and they pay close attention to me. And later on, as I left the uniform groups and started to develop my business, and noticed that it became the backbone of my ability to share difficult concepts from crisis management with senior executives from countries like Hong Kong, Malaysia, Thailand. But this is not about me. This is about you. In the course of researching to write my second book, The Science of Story Selling, I came up with a new realization that stories indeed constitute an invisible asset that we all can leverage in our businesses, in growing our businesses. And I discovered that stories are an invisible asset because the A in asset stands for stories are good at helping us to get attention. Stories also enable us to stimulate people's interest in an issue, stimulating their interest in an idea, stimulating their interest about a project, about your business. The second S, stories are good in sowing ideas, in sowing seeds into the minds of people. And sometimes they have to take that and regurgitate over that for months, for years, and then sooner than later, they begin to yield new fruit. They begin to sprout and bring alive new plants or new flowers, like in the case in Phoenix, Arizona. So my question to you is, are you using your stories as an invisible asset? But we're not done. There's still an E and there's a T. The E in asset stands for emojitainment. And that's something that I coined based on my observation of the way that politicians use stories, based on the way that business people use stories, based on the way that teachers use stories, educators. They use stories to emotionally engage, to educate, and above all, to entertain. Do you use your stories to engage? Do you use your stories to educate and to emotionally uplift? If you do that, if you're doing that, then you're doing a great job. So let me ask you this. What do you think the T stands for? You see, the T stands for trust builder. For those who know the power of stories, they'll tell you that if you tell a good story and people get to listen to you, stories have a unique way of shifting the public opinion and giving someone the opportunity to lean forward and ask for more clarification. And sometimes when they lean forward and ask for greater clarification, that means half of the battle is won. So in summary, I'd like to say stories are an invisible asset in the sense that stories help us to get attention. In a world whereby people are increasingly busy, getting someone's attention is of vital importance. That's all you need to be able to introduce your business, to be able to introduce yourself. Stories also help us to stimulate people's interest on a topic. They help us to sow new seeds in their minds. They help us to educate, to entertain, and to emotionally uplift. And last but not least, our stories also help us to build trust. But it depends on what kind of story. Not every random story can help you to build trust. Stories that I call crucible stories or Mayday stories are particularly designed to help you to earn trust from your prospects, from your customers, from the people that admire your work. Like I said earlier, until the lion learns to tell a story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. You are the lion. You're the king of the jungle. The question is, are you telling your story? Before I let you go, I know there's so much that you may have to learn about the area of storytelling, but I want to let you go with one concept that I read from many books, and I consolidated it into 5 ideas. Some authors say there are 9 steps to telling a good story. You read about a hero's journey. You read from all the authors out there. You find that some of them have 12 steps, 15 steps, 20 steps, and so on and so forth. But I've summarized it. I've boiled it down to 5 important elements that I call the 5 G's. I know what you're thinking. G, Gideon, is it because you are Dr. G? No. This has nothing to do with my initials G. The G in my storytelling method simply says that you and I need to pay close attention to what I call a good guy with a goal. A good guy with a goal is where good stories should start. Why? Because that allows the audience to care. If a good guy is in pursuit of a bad goal, of a goal that is evil, that's criminal, nobody will fall in love with that story that easily. But if it's a good guy in pursuit of a good goal, then people want to listen to that kind of story. A good guy could be a young man traveling from Singapore to Toronto to do a presentation on his own dime, and he falls short of the expectations. That's a good guy trying to do something good. The second G stands for Goliath. Goliath here doesn't necessarily mean a tall, big guy. Yes, it could be circumstantial. It could also be circumstantial. In other words, poverty could be your Goliath. Inadequate income could be your Goliath. A family breakdown could be a Goliath. The death of a child could be a Goliath. Family divorce could be a Goliath. So circumstances, people, events can be the Goliath. That's the second G. The third G is a grueling fight. The good guy must get into a head-on fight with the Goliath, because that's what makes for an exciting match. People want to watch the little guy, the little good guy from down the street fighting with Goliath. Who is going to win? You see, we start to root for the little guy because we normally don't want to see the bully win. So that's why I say you should start with a good guy. When you have a good guy in pursuit of a good goal, people fall in love with that story and they root for you. And sometimes if you create this story, if you craft the story creatively, you make your prospect to be the good guy, because then they'll fall in love with their own story. And in other words, they'll fall in love with the whole design of the story, and they'll be very curious to find out, would the little guy survive, or is Goliath going to crush him up and destroy him? Now, the fourth element there is the guru. Who is a guru? The guru is the hero of the story, someone who comes to help the good guy to survive. Maybe the good guy has been knocked down, almost dead. He's down in basement 3. It is all dark, it's all cold, it's all very fearful. It is the guru that comes to open up a window for him and show him an escape route, how to get to safety. It is the guru that does that. And the final G, if we put these elements in our stories stand out. And I have so many examples of this based on the work that I've worked with people in Asia, here in America. The final G is the gift. What did we learn from that? The good guy has finally been able to escape. He comes back to normal life, and he meets other people who are not heroes like him, who have not experienced near death like him. What is he able to share with them? That message is called the elixir, or the gift. And the best way to share that message is the message has to be succinct. It has to be very concise in a way that people can take it and replicate it and tweet it or share with others. What stumbles in Toronto rumbles in Phoenix. What was a tragedy in Canada became a triumph in America. So that's a simple way of summarizing the 5 G's. A good guy with a goal, number 1. Number 2, there is a Goliath or obstacles that the good guy has to climb over to be able to get to his destination. Number 3, the good guy gets into a grueling fight with a Goliath, head to head. And the more we escalate the circumstances, the more we escalate the conflict, the better the story becomes. Then we have the guru. And last but not least, the good guy has a message, an elixir, a new formula, a new way of looking at the world that he shares with the rest of his audience. So, I am absolutely delighted. I could go on for hours sharing with you how do you choose a good story. I could go on for hours sharing with you how do you stress test your story. First of all, in an informal environment, before you take it to the stage. I could go on to talk about the science of storytelling, looking at how the human brain resonates with stories at a very natural level. I could go on to talk about the artistic elements, the scientific elements, but I don't have the leisure, I don't have the time on my side, and I don't want to abuse your time. But I trust that you could give me another opportunity to continue to explain, to continue to share this fascinating knowledge about business storytelling with you. How to choose a story. Where do you go to find the right stories? Secondly, how do you craft that story? Making sure that the 5Gs are all inside so that the story becomes fascinating. That when you tell it, it's able to get people's instant attention. It's able to get people's recognition. It's able to earn you recognition. And above all, earn you admiration. Why do we care about admiration? Why do we care about attention? Why do we care about recognition? Because that's the first stage at which people begin to talk about you. He who gets the buzz gets the bees. If they don't talk about you, forget about the money. But the more they talk about you, the more they reflect about your business, the more they reflect about your ideas, the more they begin to get closer to you, to ask for more, to learn from you. And then you prove that you are truly the lion of the jungle who has expertise, who has been able to conquer every other beast in the jungle, and not the hunter, and not your competitors. So I want to invite you to continue to come back and learn some ideas from me on how to be a fascinating storyteller. Because as we heard earlier, until the lion learns to tell its story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. Thank you very much. Once again, my name is Dr. Gideon For-mukwai, the story warrior from Africa, having a great time in the heartlands of America. Thank you.